Hello, hello. Am I audible? Hello, hello, dear learners. So I think today we shall discuss about um, the macro level planning. I mean, you know, currently the emphasis has shifted in development planning from the top-down approach to the bottom-up approach. Nowadays, the approach is bottom-up. So this approach emphasizes more on participation of the people from the grassroots level. Their voices can be heard. They can find out ample scope and opportunity to ventilate their grievances, to also extend positive and constructive, say, suggestions. They can come up with constructive suggestions. And now the state apparatus, it has grown considerably because of the changing nature of the state. The states are no more police states. The states are now welfare states. And in welfare administration, not only protective activities are emphasized, with protection also, promotion is emphasized. Promotional activities are also emphasized. And most activities have proved economically viable. Expected results, they have not been attained. And the state has grown enormously, almost to an unmanageable extent. And in the new liberal paradigm, many functions hitherto reserved for the state could be devolved on the private sector. And also from the state, it has come down to the non-government sectors, non-government organizations. The state would function as the catalyst in fructifying the efforts. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then, thank you. So, macro planning now is virtually an alternative approach. There are two levels, the macro levels and micro levels. And mostly, when we think in terms of the planning in the national level or state level, this is what is called macro planning. So, planning at the macro, national, and state level is sector wise. Data regarding employment, housing, education, services, etc., are collected and considered in gross terms. Required detailing with a view to factoring relative concerns of diverse regions and target populace is left to the successively which are lying in the lower levels of planning and administration. So macro level planning broadly covers the resource development in broad terms in terms of investments as per the expected target growth. And it leads to necessary detailing in terms of service delivery and also the distribution to the local planning and administration. But this is a level where know-how is lacking, expertise is lacking, and that is why it has necessitated. Hello? Hello, sorry. There is a slight interruption and all that. Okay. You know, in case of rural development, excessive compartmentalization of the executive into the ministries and departments, it has ensured that planning proceeds in terms of narrow sector strategies and also mutual synergies that are absolutely vital for social sector programs which are not built up at the field level. And sometimes duplication and procedural hurdles that results have blocked benefits from flowing to the beneficiaries. So poor implementation, it largely explains unbalanced regional development and general overall suboptimal plan performance with respect to rural development as observed in the 10th plan. In India, there are a number of regions or states within the regions or even districts within states where development outcomes in terms of social indicators do not match with the available resources and the inherent potential of the people. And states that are rich in minerals are not necessarily industrially developed. And those with rich cultivable lands and assured irrigation are often lagging behind in agricultural development. So, considering these constraints, these restrictions, it has been considered proper to affect a paradigm shift from the macro sector to the micro sector planning. And that is why micro level planning gradually is assuming more of importance. What are the issues involved in this micro level planning? The first one is the choice of regions. Unless the actual planning is defined, the term micro level planning remains vague. So, choice of region is very important. Labels could be demarcated on different criteria. And the abiding concern, irrespective of the criterion adopted, its contiguity in terms of geography or exchange relations formed on the principle of homogeneity, and also on the principle of interrelationship and external contrast. That means regions should be based on distribution of related phenomena in some respects. There could also be, you know, so choice of region is one of the issues involved in this micro planning. There could be climate regions. There can be also geographical regions based on distribution of physical phenomenon, geographical structure, topography, climate, hydrology, soils, natural vegetation, etc. That means basing on the distribution of the physical phenomenon such as agricultural land use, population density, occupational patterns, etc., the regions can be fixed, the levels can be fixed. Then, by the same argument, sociologists and cultural anthropologists, they employ cultural criteria in the sense of people forming a community on the basis of shared modes and practices and not being an unrelated mass with incomprehensible heterogeneity. And hence, there could also be industrial regions or economic regions, which some scholars they have explained as the market area of a commodity, and an economic region as system of such market areas. And each basis serves some rational criterion for demarcation in development policy. In addition, it is also desirable that the region should be small enough to be close enough to the people and large enough to some homogeneous criteria to constitute a viable economic unit for planning. So remember, when there is a choice of region, very important that it's desirable that the region should be small enough, should be close enough to the people, so that people's interests can be subserved. But simultaneously, also the region must be large enough on some homogeneous criterion to constitute a viable economic unit for planning. You know, the crux of discussion is that a region should be a recognizable entity for a planner and not a disaggregated zone which cannot be planned on any rational criterion. However, in Indian administration, we shall find that our administration is characterized by lack of uniformity, as also in countries like Pakistan and Indonesia, in that some districts are very, very small, ridiculously small, and others too large. Some districts are too small, some districts are too large. So for such area, sub-district levels such as the block in India, they are considered suitable with respect to criterion certain subjects in planning. So I think in some of the previous classes, as we have said, that in the block level, most of the planning is being implemented. So ideally, in case of the Indian administration, we find that block level planning, it has been largely accepted. But also simultaneously experience shows that block level planning has been also very largely unhappy. Sometimes this block level planning also is not attaining the desired results. And the main factors accounting for this lack of success in this region, ମାନେ ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଗୋଟେ ଆଞ୍ଚଳିକ ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ଲାନିଂଟା ଆସୁଛି ବ୍ଲକ ଲେଭେଲଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ କରୁ ଅନେକ ସମୟରେ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟେଡ୍ ହଉଛି to be an ideal one, but also in that level success rate is also lacking because of these factors, that there is lack of adequate expertise at the block level. Block level रे adequate expertise नहीं planning टाको implement करिया ପାଇଁ, both in the sense of policy planning and also technical know-how. While in developed countries, the free operation of the market mechanism, it has provided adequate institutional infrastructure for effective local government economies in developing countries. You know, few scholars, they have also worked in this particular area, like Bhinath and some others, those who have worked in this particular area of democratic decentralization. And some, according to the opinion of some of them, that there should be built-in flexibility in policy design regarding the spatial extent of a policy. For example, in the development of water resources, a river valley system could be the right spatial unit. For metropolitan planning, it is necessary to plan with the metropolitan area of the city as the unit. So such regions should be used as supplements to the administrative units in planning. For example, the planning in metropolitan areas, and as we have just keep discussing the example of development of water resources, that how a river valley system could be the right special unit. And you know, such regions, they should be used as supplements to the administrative units in planning. Excuse me. ସେଠି ଅଳ୍ପ ଇଏରେ ମୁଁ ଜାଣିପାରୁନି କି ମୋର ଭଏସଟା ଶୁଭୁଛି ଜିମେଲ କିନ୍ତୁ ଲାର୍ଜ କାହିଁକି ଆସୁନି?
ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ୍ ଏଟା ଓପନ୍ ହେଇକି ଥିବ ଅଲରେଡି।
Goldie, your microphone is on.
Hello?
Alert, lift
Sir,
action
namaskar.
visible. Use window.
Namaskar. Hello, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
sir. કેમ છો સર?
Sir, just a minute. Got a slight connectivity problem. Sir,
Yes,
ଆପଣ
sir.
ଠିକ ଅଛି? Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Just
Sachin Amatham has left the meeting.
hello, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are
Your
audible.
microphone is on.
Okay. So I should continue now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So uh, in India, resource allocation for education is rather low, which contributes further to the system weaknesses. Administration is more or less inefficient owing to the lack of resources, separate staff, concentration of expertise at the top, and precisely a top heavy orientation of administration. And lack of technical expertise required for development planning at the local level is a major constraint. And there is also lack of database, adequate database for the planning. So to address possibly settle the dilemma regarding choice of label, a multi-level planning framework by way of a three-tier arrangement has been attempted in the 73rd and 74th arrangement. So you see, all the chapters which we have covered so far They have been discussed in this context of 73rd and 74th Amendment. For example, the constraints in macro level planning and all that. How to eradicate the bottlenecks and all that. And how to address the dilemma regarding choice of labels. All these things are settled in the, I mean, attempts have been made in this Amendment Act 73rd and 74th Amendments to settle those dilemmas. You know, as per the 74th Amendment, these district planning committees, they need to be constituted under the state level, state Jilla Panchayats, regional and town planning acts. So, a three-tier planning structure is envisaged in the states, panchayats, municipalities level, then district and metropolitan level, and the state level. And under this framework, panchayats, municipalities would prepare plans for their areas, which would be consolidated at the district level in the form of draft district development plans. And we can have a slight glance at the detailed process. Following the 73rd constitutional amendments, the constitution and function of the Panchayat Raj institutions at different levels are like this. At the village level, they to prepare a village data inventory, which is called VDI, village data inventory. Convene Gram Sabha meetings, list out the needs of the village, then prioritize the needs on the basis of resources available, and prepare a village plan to be submitted to the Panchayat Samiti. And at the block level, to prepare block data inventory, ठीक जिमती हमें village level गोटे village data inventory तैयारी करा है सिमती एठी मध्ये necessity अछि that there should be the preparation of a block data inventory, aggregate all village plans, and prepare the block level plan to be submitted to the district panchayat. आपण देखंतु first of all micro level planning है at the village level, then it's transmitted to the block level, which shall be submitted to the district level. So at the district level, to consolidate all block plans, disaggregate them by items, year and cost wise, distribute the activities to different local governmental departments, sector wise, and finally prepare the district plan to be presented before the district planning committee. जोटा कि हमें DPC बोली short रे कहू छै. Same the metropolitan development plans would be also prepared by the Metropolitan Planning Committee, MPCs. All district and metropolitan development plans would then congregate in the formulation of a plan at the state level. So this is how in different levels this planning can be monitored, can be prepared and also monitored. Then regarding functional demarcation of plan subjects, there will be functional demarcation between tier with respect to issues as per suitability. You know the 11th schedule, because 73rd Amendment has added this. It lists the function assigned to the local bodies. The 12th schedule, 74th Amendment, 11th schedule ta 73rd Amendment Act द्वारा, 12th schedule ta 74th Amendment Act द्वारा, it has been added to the Constitution. And it has listed 18 functions of the municipalities. Planning of land use, planning for economic and social development, bodies. In the absence of clarity in assignment of functions, the State Finance Commission would not be able to assess the fiscal needs at a level and allocate adequate resources accordingly. And importantly, the 74th Amendment expressly recognized the role of the urban local bodies within the constitutional framework and provide for the devolution of financial powers from the state government, and that is required, which is required for strengthening the municipal finance system, financial stability, to strengthen the financial capability of the municipal bodies. And another thing is that 74th also Amendment Act, this which is meant for the urban local bodies, provides for constitution of ward committees in municipalities with a population of more than 3 lakhs. Metropolitan planning committees and district planning committees for consolidation and preparation of plans of spatial, economic and social development. From the top-down approach, the emphasis has just shifted to bottom-up approach. ଆମେ ଏଇ ଲେସନର ଡିସ୍କସନ ଆମେ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିଛେ ଯେ ବଟନ ଅପ୍ ଆପ୍ରୋଚଟା is basically grassroots, where people's participation, because in the decisions shall come up from the bottom, then it shall gradually go upwards. ଆମେ ଏବେ ଯୋଉ ଡିସ୍କସନଟା କଲେ ଧରନ୍ତୁ rural side ରେ village level ରେ how to prepare village data inventory, convene from gram sabha meeting, list out the needs of the village, prioritize the needs on the basis of the resources available. Then this village plan जोटा तैयारी ହେଲା on this particular basis should be submitted to whom? Panchayat Samiti, the upper layer. And also in the Panchayat Samiti, the inventory is being prepared and all that, then it is submitted to it is going up to the district level, the district panchayats. So it is virtually the movement is from the bottom to the top. It is not top-down model, but bottom-up approach. So in the context of the challenges confronted by the urban local bodies, planners have to prepare themselves for a new role and much wider responsibilities. And equally important, there would be need for suitable administrative adaptations by way of securing personnel equipped with required technical capability for plan implementation and managerial capacity to institute desired partnership with the civil society. So, in order to fulfill these things, the desired goals, what is needed is manpower planning. And also training of the manpower, personal training is required. And modifications in the recruitment policy is also very much required, very much necessary, which can only give emphasis on the technical expertise, which would only go a long way in making this planning more successful. Now let us come. So there is the issue of region, then functional demarcation as we have just covered up. Then also there is question of orientation. The pertinent thing is that what should be the subject matter focus in micro level planning? There are too many subjects to, from which you'll have to choose. And it implies the ideological focus of micro level planning. Orientations that differ between environment centric, employment centric, and productivity centric approaches. Multi level planning is always essential. And it is especially pertinent with regard to environmental safeguard because natural resource use has its externalities and they cut across the state boundaries. You know, virtually environmental issues are not only they cut across the state boundaries, they're global in character, transnational in character. For that matters, pollution on the part of one state affects agriculture productivity in another state. Good state or environmental condition, it can affect, for example, the agricultural productivity of another state, of a neighboring state. So naturally, the resource use has the externalities. They cut across the states. They do not know any state boundary that they shall hold there. So the issue of the choice of region, जोटा कि प्रथमे हमें discuss कले, for development planning, it has been referred already earlier, and the emphasis on region is in focus particularly to cater to the requirements of environmental protection policy. Micro planning at the district level would have no impact. If the state at the macro level carries on with unscrupulous resource use, so if the state at the macro level shall use environmental resources unscrupulously, Macro planning, micro planning at the district level would have no impact. So, an intra-level partnership arrangement is required. Intra-level partnership arrangement must involve regions, states, districts, blocks. So the emphasis is on integrated approach. তাহলে দেখুন তো গোটে লেভেলর মধ্যে মিসপ্ল্যানিং ক্যান affect its efficacy in the other level. So intra-level partnership arrangement is very much important. The next important aspect is requirements, that is a process requirements. What are the process requirements? Planning approach should concentrate on a small geographic area where required intersecting can be explored. So the approach adopted should be area development. And plan efforts should relate to resource constraints and administrative capability. Planning method adopted should be more flexible so that it can adapt to changes, because a rigid planning system will never adapt to the changes, it will collapse. So it should be flexible in order to sustain. It should be area specific, since resource capability and requirements in different areas would be different. Case studies have brought forth that uniform application methodology has been the primary cause of lack of success in meeting objectives in different regional areas. So accordingly, there should be more powers to the local administrators to reappropriate and reallocate the resources as per the requirement. And technically, in the following areas, technical expertise they are required. And what are the necessary areas where this systematic technical arrangement is very much required? Systematic technical efforts are required in resource inventory and data collection. Then it must be applicable to the areas of identifying the priorities of the specific areas, and also the selection of the programs. Then technically systematic effort should be there in decisions about the coverage and time frame, and stress on optimum utilization of existing manpower resources and instituting the means of augmenting the capacities for the human capital. Then there should be the need for continuous assessment and audit of resource spent and available, and also innovative solutions to augment the same. So these are certain areas where technically systematic efforts have to be put. The technical requirements presuppose also technical planning, which would be essential prerequisite for enjoined effort. Development, particularly in three sectors like agriculture, industry, and services, they have to proceed conjointly. ये तीनटा का सेक्टर है डेवलपमेंट है कंजॉइंटली सिंक्रोनाइजिंग वे डेवलप हुआ दरकार. So it needs integration. And what sectors are industry, agriculture, and services. So programs like integrated rural development, IRDP program, they have suffered because of the piecemeal approach. Because there is no integration among these sectors. Because of the piecemeal approach, programs like IRDP, integrated rural development program, it has suffered. It has failed in many aspects. Then financial constraints should need to be overcome as a necessary requirement. The constraints of local finance, for example, inadequate grants from state government, that some of the local bodies they run because of this. For the most part, on the granting aid which is available from the states, but in most cases, states provide inadequate fund. So inadequate grants from the state governments, then cutting off, better realization of the areas and cutting back the non-plan expenditures, which could be controlled through containing the underemployment, which is massive in India. So this is more or less about the financial constraints. There are also administrative constraints relating to the lack of coordination between various sectors. The behavioral expectations with regard to the informal coordination or voluntary cooperation on the part of the officials and non-officials involved in the various governmental or non-governmental organizations, it may not be sufficient. So presently, coordination is almost totally dependent on personal relations of the district chiefs to the department heads. And for that purpose, micro level plans would be crucial, since it would be the instrumentality to establish formal modalities for needed coordination. Coordination can be secured through planning and monitoring developments relating to impact of decisions on related sectors. It implies a paradigm shift from sectoral and departmental approach towards area development and benefits. So the shift from the sectoral and departmental approach towards the area development and beneficiary oriented approach is implied. In the planning phase, certain steps have to be followed in sequence. Formulation of the major objectives first, then compilation of the data. These are the steps which have to be taken up in sequence. Sequentially, like gote pore gote juta pore juta rahiba katha. Then assess needs and strategies. Assessment of the resource allocation strategies, articulation of the fresh allocations, identification of the interlinkages among projects and programs, organization and management to ensure bridging up of implementation gaps, assessment of resources for allocation, creation of links between the district plan, the regional and state development plans. So, the chief activities which are involved in local planning are needs analysis, information collation regarding geographical and socio-economic data, then resource strategizing, priority ordering, setting up implementation mechanism, then evaluation. These steps followed sequentially. Actually, in most of the texts, you shall find also this arrangement in a very tabular form. For example, Sundaram, one of the scholars, he has stipulated tasks in a very tabular form. For example, if the task is a resource analysis, what are the steps to be involved? Resource inventory, socio-economic benchmark survey, identification of constraints to the development, assessment of ongoing programs. If the task is strategy formulation, then the steps are identification of the goals, then formulation of development strategy. Then if the task is plan formulation, then the steps involved are or to be followed sequentially are identification of schemes and project, individual houses planning for the target groups, then infrastructural planning, then locational planning, employment planning, then institutional planning. And if the task is implementation planning, the steps followed are program integration, program sequencing, financial programming, and program monitoring and evaluation. So Sundaram, one of the scholars, has arranged this the stipulated tasks and steps to be involved in a very tabular form. ତେବେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହେଉଛି ଯେ ମାଇକ୍ରୋ ଲେଭେଲ ପ୍ଲାନିଂରେ କନଷ୍ଟ୍ରେଣ୍ଟସ୍ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ କ'ଣ? ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ କନଷ୍ଟ୍ରେଣ୍ଟସ୍ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ଭିତରେ ହେଉଛି because it is expeditious. Technical personnel, for example, the district block and lower level officials of various departments, they are generally available. There is no problem of adjustment of district and lower level plans with the state plan. Implementation of the plans is virtually assured. Planning from below can be a time consuming and difficult process. These are some of the advantages when planning from above is followed. Virtually top down model advantages. I am again repeating, it is expeditious. बहुत शीघ्र कार्यकारी हो, एक्सपीडाइटेड। Which is, that means, concomitantly speaking, planning from below can be a time consuming process. ଆମେ ପ୍ରଥମେ କହିଲେ ଟପ୍ ଡାଉନ୍ ମଡେଲଟା ଉପରୁ ପ୍ଲାନିଂଟା ଆସୁଛି ଏକ୍ସପିଡିସସ୍ ମାନେ ବେଗି ହେଟା କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକାରୀ ହେଇଯାଇପାରିବ। ବଟ୍ ପ୍ଲାନିଂ ଫ୍ରମ୍ ବିଲୋ କ୍ୟାନ୍ ବି ଏ ଟାଇମ୍ କନଜ୍ୟୁମିଂ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ପ୍ରୋସେସ୍। Time planning from below, in this particular plan, the plan should keep in view the availability of the general guidelines of the departments in the respect of the availability of the funds and manpower. जोटा कि planning from above re it is easier because technical personnel are available at various levels like your block level or district level. But in case of the planning from below, plans should keep in view the availability of the general guidelines of the departments. Finally, the village or multi-level plans have to be adjusted, modified before they can be included in the plan of the block or taluks or community development levels and all that. Then also there can be information constraints. At the local level, situation can be described as one of information crisis. Since administration had top-down orientation through centuries, ଆମେ ଟପ୍ ଡାଉନ୍ ମଡେଲ ସହିତ ସେଞ୍ଚୁରିଜ ଆମର ଏକ୍ସପିରିଏନ୍ସ ରହିଛି, we are associated. Data is accordingly oriented in that there is ready data for macro level planning, that is national accounts covering national income, savings, investments, foreign trade and monetary system. As per the official document of the Ministry of Science and Technology, the development of database technologies, entry of computers in India in the late 1970s, and first Indian remote sensing experiment in 1977, it triggered the possibility of introduction and integration of geospatial information in planning. And both quantitative and qualitative data, they are required regarding socio-economic indices like cultural preferences with regard to nutrition, employment, indigenous construction, cultural mores, figures for unemployment, poverty across spatial extents, nature of poverty, specific requirements in particular areas in to ameliorate the situation. So there is a need for corresponding information processing agencies along with planning agencies. Planning agencies ସହିତ information dissemination by agencies, they must develop accordingly, simultaneously at each level to perform the vital task of research, information collation, processing, and also communication to the relevant decision making centers. Because if the decision making centers they face information crisis, right kind of decisions at the right moment cannot be taken. Then people's participation. 74th Amendment Act 1992 provides for a democratic and participatory planning process to incorporate the needs of the people, particularly the poor, socially deprived, disadvantages. Particularly socially disadvantaged group ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ participation ର scope ଏଥିରେ ବିଶେଷ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି. The act also stipulates the setting of district planning committees, DPCs, MPCs, Metropolitan Planning Committee, which we have already discussed several times. So the most vital component of micro level planning is interest articulation on the part of the people. People's interest must be articulated, possible through forum organized particularly for the purpose. Cooperative societies are being looked upon as the instrumentality to realize the objective. Also, in the village level, the village planning forum, it was organized in village, comprising of selected peers in the village from all walks of life, like businessmen, scientists, panchayat union officials, credit officials, and it has successfully energized the local population in articulating interest and participating otherwise actively in political matters directly related to their concerns. This experiment was more or less being done successfully in states like Tamil Nadu and other states. Regarding this village planning forum, the organization of BPFs and all that. Then also there are cultural constraints in micro level planning. Panchayat Raj is a historical institution in India. ଯଦିଓ ଏବେ 92ରେ ଆମେଣ୍ଡମେଣ୍ଟ ଆକ୍ଟ ସବୁ ତିଆରି ହେଲା କିନ୍ତୁ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ସିଷ୍ଟମର ଅପରେସନଟା ଆମ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ୍ କଲଚର ସହିତ ବହୁତ ଦିନ ଧରି ଜଡ଼ିତ in different phases as per the relative freedom effective sake enjoyed in the development planning, and it is also acknowledged that local institutions enjoyed better democracy and more cultural legitimacy. So democratic decentralized agencies institutions, they have more of cultural legitimacy in ancient India and also in medieval times. And history has ample of examples of this. But regarding cultural constraints, for example, the bureaucracy at present by and large resented subordination to elected bodies at the local level. There is lack of reconciliation, which was articulated as disagreement on vital policy issues. Then another thing is lack of political will on the part of the state executive for the real democratic decentralization at the grassroots level. So political will matters. So exploring the behavioral dimension, there was power politics involved as well, in that local MLAs had to tie with the Gram Panchayat Pradhans for political mileage. In 1969 Vidhan Sabha election, particularly in states like Rajasthan. And lack of resources being the toughest constraint. So argument for a strong center have been ideologically supported with reference to the Westminster model of democracy, by which sovereignty resided in parliament, even though the Indian situation is vastly different. Sovereignty resides with the people, not with the parliament. In our case, parliament is sovereign in case of Great Britain. Then also micro level planning in the 5-year plans, and they have been emphasized. Main focus of the development efforts in the initial years was on tackling food security and decreasing reliance on imports for the capital goods sector. During the second 5-year plan, the concept of a local horizontal plan was discussed. During the third 5-year plan, state level planning with states, regions were attempted. A three-tier local government structure based on the recommendation of the Balwant Mehta Committee. So, in various plan periods, the focus shifts, and keeping in view the location specific requirements of these plans, the block was considered the proper unit of planning. And following a series of workshops involving district collectors, magistrates, and pilot projects, district was accepted as the sub-state working unit. A brief reference also should be made that what are the priorities in the 10th plan. 10th plan has announced a shift from the resource plan to a reform plan. There is a shift from the resource plan to the reform plan. 10th plan period এটা হচ্ছে ଗୋଟେ theme. Plan implementation needs rectification. And to that end, qualitative aspects of planning as per administrative behavior, process requirements, then the ecological context of planning, they are also as vital as quantitative targets. Then strengthening the monitoring mechanism would be the focus to check the plan progress. Due emphasis should be given to the monitoring mechanisms. The planning that fix implement success rate why, if it is low high, then where are the pitfalls, where are the leakages. Civil service reform should be attempted through involvement of the professionals on a contract basis. Project plan design should be attempted in a more professional manner. Re-engineering of processes and rules should be attempted. Through e-governance, most of you know about e-governance, the smart government. Smart means simple, moral, accountable, responsive, transparent. All the letters, they stand for one word. Smart, S-M-A-R-T, simple, M for moral, A for accountable, R for responsive, T for transparent. So, user-friendly administrative structure. Then we can also have a look to the structural reforms, resources, finances, powers, and functions. These are all structural reforms. The critics largely, they criticize the Indian administration as being excessively top heavy. Top heavy. It is a feature of colonial administration. More power being concentrated at the top level. So from the colonial administration, virtually it's a legacy. And gradually, of course, we have tried to change it. And there is a growing body of opinion that ineffective policy implementation stems from improper policy formulation, in that it is not inclusive enough of related concerns and does not factor the same into policy. Hence, most of the times the policies are not relevant, neither rational. And incomplete effort, it leads to unintended consequences. So, data collection, record keeping for relevant fact, supply needs to be arranged at the local levels so that the decentralization shall be really meaningful. Accurate estimations regarding the objectives, progress, and targets can be made. Since the implementation exercise partakes and it's concentrated at the field level, it is imperative to address the concerns relating to administration and planning bottlenecks at the cutting edge. I mean, that is the stage where interface between the government and the citizen takes place. That is called the cutting edge administration level. जो थे कि गवर्नमेंट और सिटीजन के भीतर इंटरफेस and at that cutting edge level ସେଥିପାଇଁ officials those are operating at the cutting edge level that most they have their role is most vital. And you know, available infrastructure for planning modalities for people's participation also must be given due attention. And you know, following the 73rd and 74th amendments, ଆମେ already ବାରମ୍ବାର ଏଟା କହି ଚାଲିଛେ ପ୍ରାୟ ସବୁ କ୍ଲାସରେ थ्री टायर स्ट्रक्चर बोथ साइड्स रे तैयारी କରାଗଲା both urban and local bodies रे. The Gram Sabha on the rural side is meant to impart a social base for grassroots democracy. And the executive body of this Gram Sabha is Gram Panchayat. It is actively engaged in preparation of the audit and accounts, annual plans, reports. So Gram Panchayat is involved in these activities, being the executive of Gram Sabha. And you know, the Panchayat Samiti is also in the middle tier, and most developmental works बारंबार कहा होची जे ब्लॉक लेवल बाय जो मिडिल लेवल रे ही ऑपरेट होची. Most of the developmental, I mean planning, being operative at this block level. Then Jilla Parishad is at the top. Urban local bodies have also been given a uniform three-tier structure like your NSCs, municipalities and municipal corporations. You know, the arrangement in this three-tier structure both on the rural side and urban side definitely has led to unforeseen tensions. Reportedly, as per the observation of some of the researchers in this area, certain villages that will now be incorporated in municipal areas, they do not wish to part with their rural status. There is another equally important issue also which needs to be addressed. The issue is a true federal arrangement at the local level, where a cabinet takes decision which is accountable to a duly elected legislature. For example, think of a municipal corporation. Presently, the political executive, the mayor, is a figurehead with real powers vested in the commissioner, who is appointed by the state. The commissioner is appointed for a fixed term. The commissioner's term is in the office can be extended or also can be reduced by the state government. The powers of the commissioner are those provided by statute and those delegated by the corporation or standing committee. So here in this particular model, the mayor of a particular city, I mean municipal corporation, is enjoying not the real powers. Those are vested with the commissioner. But an alternative model is also prevailing in states like West Bengal, which is known as the mayor in council form of the city governance. That can be described as a cabinet government replicating the formula operating in the state and national level, where there is a mayor and 10-member cabinet with individual portfolios chosen from among elected councillors. The cabinets ଯେମିତି ଆମର କାଉନସିଲ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର୍ସ ଅଛି ବା କ୍ୟାବିନେଟ୍ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର୍ସ ମାନେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେଇ ପ୍ୟାଟର୍ନରେ ସେଟା ଅପରେଟ୍ କରୁଛି. The municipal corporation groups the wards into boroughs, with each one having a committee consisting of the councillors elected from the respective wards or the boroughs. So some scholars they are of opinion that the desired future state of affairs should be local governments enjoying the right as their counterpart in some of the countries like Brazil, South Africa, Nigeria, to decide the form of its political executive and appoint the same independently. So some of the scholars say that in order to make these type of arrangements more effective, some of the patterns should be followed, which are now in some other countries like South Africa, Brazil, or Nigeria, etc., where the forms of the political executive that is to be operative in the local level shall be decided by the local self-governments. For example, regarding municipal staff, ideally it should be under the complete control of the local governments. But now we say that the mayor is virtually not enjoying the real power, but with the commissioner. This scenario should change. And substantially, the control of the states must be cut. The structure and the powers given to the municipal staff or the municipal personnel should be completely under the control of the local government. And 74th Amendment Act 1992, it has acted upon the recommendation of the Rural Urban Relationship Committee, and it seeks to provide more power and authority to urban local bodies. And is the first serious attempt to develop democratic municipal government as planning bodies through constitutional provisions. And the main features are introducing of the 12th schedule, which lists the function of the urban local bodies. Establishment of district and metropolitan planning committees, and which must be responsible for the election of a representation, for the preparation of development plans. Then proposed establishment of ward committees, specification by law of the powers and responsibility entrusted to municipalities and ward committees, holding of periodical and timely elections, Then by law to specify the sources of municipal finance. Then restriction on the power of the state governments to do away with democratically elected municipal governments. Reservation of one third of seats to women and also weaker sections, which is the provision. Now the accent is on the developmental planning, and therefore it is a paradigm shift as far as local bodies are concerned, because they are sought to be developed in the real sense of the term. That is called self-government. How to make the arrangement suitable for self-government. And broadly, the Act enjoins on the state governments to develop the powers and responsibilities with regard to the preparation of plans for economic development and social justice. So virtually, most of the things have been left to the state governments and will, their attempt to make it more fruitful. And also, you can find from the text the brief perusal of the acts in different states regarding devolution of power, because it varies from state to state. Category A, states like UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Assam, and Kerala, which have not prioritized activities but assigned subjects listed in the 11th schedule. Category B states, Odisha, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, which have divided functions into obligatory and mandatory functions. For example, in the obligatory category, functions are like which are performed subject to the availability of the funds. Then category C, these states which have drawn their own list following specification in the 11th schedule. Like these states are Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. So after studying and observing the pattern of this or the function of this local self-governments, we can draw a conclusion that development has been left as a matter of convenience, and also the task of prioritizing the functions, it is left to the state government. And the states have been left free to choose their mode of decentralization. That in what way the devolution of authority or the power shall be done, in what way this decentralization or democratic decentralization can be implemented. That is completely left to the state governments. So there are also few modalities of the participation of the people. There is, in spite of the fact that there are a considerable ambiguity and all that, there is a need to link the citizenship with radical development agenda. You know, citizenship can be defined as that of the practices set of practices which define a member as a competent member of a society. And this is, of course, a very broad conceptualization. And it takes participation beyond the imminent participation in specific programs. And the very political space where the political participation of the citizens can be successful. They have certain dimensions. The institutional channels through which policy formulation and implementation could be accessed, controlled, or contested by the poor. The political discourse in which the poverty and poverty reduction are specific issues. The social and political practices of the poor, which may be a basis for influencing decision making, agenda, policy, and program implementation. Thus, viewing the citizens' participation as a corollary to citizenship, it perceives citizens as not external but internal to the governance process. And civil society, in the present day, it has really amassed a lot of importance, gathered a lot of importance, is emerging as a counterpoise to the overweening powerful state and rampant individualism in capitalism, in the market. So, the scholars, those who are studying communitarianism, they advocate restructuring public services in welfare state to promote self-help organizations. Democratic decentralization, which is the key to this participatory governance. Participation at the local level is institutionalized through regular elections, council hearings, and perhaps most significantly, participatory budgeting. And our constitution, this Constitution Amendment Act, जोटा कि हमें 73rd, 74th Amendment बारंबार इटा refer करूचे, using this, all the chapters virtually are related to the provisions of those particular acts. They enable the people to participate in development process at ward, municipal, district, and metropolitan region level. And the development strategy pursued up till now, it has led to increase in the powers and activities of the state. Past experiences with our community development projects in urban areas and also the involvement in the urban basic infrastructure provisions, it shows that community involvement reduces the cost of a project considerably. If we involve the community, the cost of a project shall be reduced. Urban basic service programs. It was launched by central government with the assistance from UNICEF. The projects covered only a few slums in select number of cities. And since there was no institutional stipulation from the World Bank, the solutions pursued they're local in nature, they're more local in nature. And it was realized as the scheme developed that community involvement not only results in effective implementation of the project, but also it leads to better designing and substantial reduction in the operation cost. So currently, you see, if you involve the people, the cost of the project shall be reduced. It is observed. It is a practical experience. And currently, activism on the part of the people is evident against the emerging right-wing forces. The people have challenged industries which threaten environment. There are numerous instances of such informed activism for environmental conservation. Then also conservation of the civil rights, protection of the civil rights. The directives came from the wake of petitions filed, for example, by village panchayat presidents in Odisha unit in our state also, People's Union of Civil Liberties, PUCL. Then also a Gram Panchayat also in Himachal Pradesh. They have decided to file petitions in the High Court against the state government's decision to privatize the golf course in that area, in certain areas in Himachal Pradesh. I mean, these are some of the instances how people's activism have grown. And they have grown against the emerging right-wing forces like industrial houses and some other concerns, those of threatened environment. Then also there is a reference you shall find from your books like municipal revenue, sorry, the revenues at the disposal of the local bodies, both urban and rural. Like, for example, in the revenue, so far as the municipal revenues are concerned, tax revenue, non-tax revenue, grant in aid, then also property tax, octroi, non-tax revenues, grant in aid, etc. These are all various sources of income. Then also reference to state finance commission can be made. With the increasing pace of urbanization, municipal bodies are finding it difficult to deliver the required level of service. And with the Amendment Act of 1992 and the addition of the 18 functions under the 12th schedule, the functional responsibilities of the municipalities they have gone up. So the recommendations of the State Finance Commission are like this: distribution between the state government and municipalities of the net proceeds of the tax, duties, tolls, fees leviable by the states, allocation of a share of such proceeds between the municipalities at all levels in the state, then determination of the tasks, the taxes, duties, tolls, fees to be assigned and appropriated by the municipalities, granting aid to municipalities from the consolidated fund of the state. Then also measures needed to improve the financial position of municipalities. ଆପଣ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯେମିତି ଆମର ଫାଇନାନ୍ସିଆଲ ରିଲେସନସିପ୍ ବିଟୱିନ୍ ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଠିକ୍ ସେମିତି between the state government and the local bodies. What should be the arrangement so that the local bodies also shall not be feeling financially constrained? So the State Finance Commission also has made recommendations to strengthen the financial hands. So what is the agenda for the future? Definitely, this constitutional amendment acts, I mean, both 73rd and 74th, it is a step towards bringing about changes in the existing framework of the local bodies. And the reforms required by the urban local bodies are multifaceted, which covers political, social, administrative, financial, and technological aspects. The 10th plan has articulated the desired role of the local bodies that how they will be responsive and accountable to the community to develop cities with standard of service comparable to the best in that particular category to constantly improve their capabilities. So substantial progress has already been achieved through projects like mega city projects for 5 selected cities in India. The integrated development of small and medium towns, that is IDSNT, and the accelerated urban water supply programs, AUWSP. It has also been functioning. It has started functioning also with a fair rate of success. So radical changes are called for. And the changes to infuse efficiency. How efficiency can be infused to the local system. Definitely, these constitutional amendment acts are a step, a positive step forward, but also a truly federated arrangement is also required. Besides these amendments, a structural arrangement is also needed. And the present arrangement still suggests colonial hangover. So that should go. A federated, really federated arrangement should be there, where real autonomy also should be devolved upon the local bodies. I think only another 15 minutes left. I should conclude with some other references to capacity building of the grassroots functionaries. Grassroots जो functionaries मैंने operate करुछंती सेमानकर capacity building. You know, ଆମେ 1990 73rd 74th Amendment Act करे. We have meticulous provisions. And the purpose is how to introduce grassroots democracy. And definitely it has been a very long cherished dream. Amendments introduce new institutions at the local level. But however, the capacity at which these institutions at the local level perform would depend on the resources, the infrastructure, and the technical expertise available at their disposal, or the technical expertise of the personnel, those who are engaged in these particular stages. Provisions तो तैयारी है गला, amendment act को provide कर देला सब, किंतु actual efficiency टा किंतु आसीबो. The personnel engaged in this particular level, their capacity building must be enhanced. So, what are the main facets of local administration, and what adaptations are needed for the purpose of recent constitutional amendments, so that this purpose of the recent amendments can be realized. 73rd, 74th amendments purpose should be realized. The recent amendments, they have introduced two new institutions: the District Planning Committee and the State Finance Commissions. ये amendment रे ये दीटा को institution ଉପରେ ବିଶେଷ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦିଆଗଲା ଏବଂ introduce କରାଗଲା ये दीटा को institution. District Planning Committee and the State Finance Commission in local governance. The composition of the State Finance Commission and the qualification required for appointment have been left to the discretion of the respective state governments. So, because all along our discussion ଆମେ କହି ଚାଲିଛେ ଯେ এই amendment act ରେ state government को sufficient discretion ଦିଆ ହେଇଛି. That is why there is a difference of the achievements in various states because the arrangement is completely left to the state governments. And they have been really given ample power so that their local governments, the arrangement pertaining to their local government shall be done according to their discretion. Position in this regard, that is why it differs from state to state. In case of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Punjab, no details with regard to composition and qualification have been provided in the respective acts. Certain larger states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, they have smaller finance commissions consisting of only 3 members each. As regards the qualification prescribed by the chairperson of the commission, states like Assam, Bihar, Haryana, UP, Tamil Nadu, etc., they have not provided any details. In case of Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat, the qualification prescribed is a broad experience in public affairs. Experience in public affairs. It's a broad qualification. So the question of qualification of the members should be carefully attended. Since the State Finance Commission, as per the constitutional stipulation, would be in charge of devolution of both plan and non-plan funds. You know, capacity building of elected functionaries are also very important. Local bodies को जो माने elected कले सेमानकर मध्य capacity building is very important. There is frequent dissolution, suspension and supersession of the local bodies by the state government in most cases. And this has definitely threatened and interfered with the development of the administrative capability of the elected personnel. If there is frequent dissolution, frequent suspension, frequent supersession by the state government, then the capacity building, the development of the capacity building activities so far as the elected personnel they are concerned, the elected members are concerned, that shall be thwarted. Hence, political will at the state level to help develop local bodies as institutions of self-governance is very, very critical to develop experience of the public affairs at the local level. The 73rd Amendment Act attended to this problem of dissolution, of course, very partly. Panchayats cannot be kept a stage of suspension and dissolution for long periods, as it is mandatory on the part of the state government to conduct elections within 6 months of the dissolution. And 6 months अधिका dissolve करके गोटे body को रखा जाए. So to some extent, amendment provisions they have made in making fresh elections within 6 months of the dissolution of the local body. You know, most committees and working groups set up on the local government, they agreed on the need for adequate safeguards to prevent misuse of power. And you know, Besides dissolution, also there is a question of membership of the newly formed local institutions. For the democratic self-government, it's pertinent to understand the sociological dimension of these institutions. Political decentralization may not be wholly effective, and if the underlying social order remains oligarchic, then political decentralization shall be inchoate, ineffective. So, another important thing is the reference to the rule of law, which is absolutely vital for liberal economy. So, we shall find that another reason why police administration needs also attention is that the rule of law is absolutely vital for liberal economy, whose another tenet is freedom of contract. Mafia activities, other sources of corruption need to be checked so that a free competition between the bidders for contract, especially at the private sector, would be now be involved in public services provisions. So provisions are there to fight out also corruption and various activities which go against the rule of law, and sufficient arrangements should be made so that rule of law, which is vital to democratic any democracy for that matter, is to be preserved. Then also capacity building for the local administrators. Capacity building ଟା ଯେମିତି elected members ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଦରକାର, elected functionaries ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଦରକାର. Exactly. Capacity building also for the local administrators is also required. It is observed that there is too much of unionism among the municipal staff. They have succeeded, as in Mumbai, in extracting sizable pay increase on the basis of their organizational strength. The question of labor law reform has lingered on for some time without much effect. Labor law reform should boost investment and improve the employees' situation considerably. Systems has to be refurbished on both input and output sides. Organizational changes in the local administration are also underway. And so far as this capacity building is concerned, there is a trend which is visible towards specialization. So the 10th plan also indicates the strategy that local initiatives should be encouraged by way of creating awareness through educating and training and information dissemination to the local functionaries, incorporating non-government organizations and community-based organizations, then identifying more vulnerable groups like women and children for special assistance. Then also another important asset is community empowerment. Civil society, for that matter, is the most vital subject, and it is the hope of the new world order. If a civil society organization ଉପରେ ବେଶୀ emphasize କରାଯାଉଛି, that is community empowerment. This is the hope of the new order. And what is a civil society organization and what is the space of operation? It is a space which is unoccupied by state and the market. The particular space which is left vacant by the state and market is occupied by civil society. And Of course, state and market both have, they didn't venture to occupy that particular space for different reasons. There have been reported state market failures in service provisions. People's participation in administration is equally also necessary, and studies and participation exhibit bias in favor of a privileged section since they have the means to participate. I mean, people's participation पर कहले मध्य people differ in the level of participation, in the degree of participation because the means available. Some people have the means to participate, where others have not. However, one World Bank study, it, it has made one assessment about the empowerment of the community and all that. Community needs could be prioritized because of the lack of insufficient articulation in this respect on the part of the people themselves, and majority of who remain poor and socially marginalized. So some scholars, by way of observation, they have told that drastic changes in the organizational setup at the field level in consonance with the objectives of the program to attain desired results. Therefore, there is a need for attitudinal change in the bureaucracy in keeping with the changing paradigm of Indian administration. Awareness of the rights on the part of the people is crucial to create desired environment of change. ସବୁଠାରୁ important part ହେଉଛି awareness of the public vigilance, which can only go a long way. And you know, the role of civil society is very important because that can only the more invigorated is the civil society organization that would enable people to articulate their interests more effectively and also find ways of putting them through the policymakers, which in turn would lead to fair policies in that rationality that would advance their or protect their own interest. And that is the desired goal of democracy, that when people's interests shall be protected. So this is all about today's discussion regarding capacity building of the elected functionaries, the administrators, the role of civil society. Then also we have done for this micro level planning, structural reforms in the resources, finances, powers and functions. So with this, I think it's already 7:33. I close up. Now I must quit the platform because it's and I thank all of you for a patient listening, for your patient listening. So now, dear learners, I can quit the platform. Hello, dear learners. Since it's already time and we have touched upon very vital parts of this discussion on democratic decentralization, but today I close the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.